Here's the volume I never expected to get. Girl Comics, Atlas Comics Library, number 7. And you're probably thinking, romance stories. Why would I want those? I want superhero, I want action, I want excitement, I want horror, I want all those things. Well, you might not get the superhero in this, but you get a lot of unusual stories. This is just not the volume that I really ever expected from a title like Girl Comics. Real adventures of real girls. Well, okay, maybe not, but you got this lovely, always love this banner there. But let's get into the book itself. This is volume 7. It's huge. This is 400, but I mean, this is, you can see, this is a lot. 400 pages. The sun's going in just as I start filming. My apologies for that. It gets slightly darker. Always the way, isn't it? However, what has this got? This comprises of Girl Comics 1 to 12, October 1949 to 1952. And this is from Dr. Michael J. Vasillo and, of course, Alan Harvey. Brilliant as ever. This is just superb. Real quality book. You'd really love to see all kinds of books like this, just done with love and care. And you've got to see here the contents, great range of stories. See here giving you obviously all the details of various writers, if known, artists, if known. Of course, sometimes a bit of speculation about whether those artists are ones or not. I must admit, I couldn't tell. But sometimes when you look at it, you think, yes, that's definitely Bill Everett. And then you find out he was the inker. But still, it's got a great little introduction as well. This is just very, I mean, I would love to see a huge volume of all these just introductions, personally. I think they're just great. Really gives a lot of background detail, all about the timely and Atlas comics, obviously the period 1949, 50, etc. And you got here My Romance. And of course, this was the one that started Young Romance. And of course, you've got loads of covers, so many. They produce thousands and thousands. And I've actually got a few here. I was going to drag one over and just show you, but I will show you a little later. But it's Miss America. Got a few of those. And quite a few had like Elizabeth Taylor on the cover. Lots of film stars and things. Sometimes, of course, some of the film stars I'm not so familiar with. Obviously, Tyrone Power, etc. But you've also got reuse of the covers. You've got life romances, love romances, and so on. Of course, there was, of course, the various pulp ones as well. Secret Story and Secret Story there again. Secret Story romances and romance. Well, My Own Romance. But it's a great introduction. You've got lots of great covers, lots of things. Faithful, Honeymoon, Ideal, Love Comics, Neil. All these comics, quite often the titles just reused. This one, Molly Manton's Romances. Very unusual. But romance diaries, romance tales, young hearts. And of course, Marvel did recently bring out, so recently, I think it was about 2011, and mentioned in here, actually, I quite enjoyed those ones. And of course, I'd love to see a collections of these ones. Where is the epic? Where are the omnibuses of some of these? They're not all brilliant, but it would be nice to see at least a best of, maybe, like a genre one that like DC have been doing with the DC Finest. Come on, Marvel, please, let's just have a couple of them anyway. You got this one, Girl Comics, straight away you can see. Bit like the UK comics, quite often you had this sort of like a photo cover or something like this, or maybe it would be connected with music or something. You have Cliff Richard or something on the front cover. Actually, he does. Dr. Michael J. Vasillo mentions this format where they have this sort of start there, and then they had this. It was definitely a grid of 6. They would just go through it, and you could see. And actually, there's that. There is there. And actually, that's one thing. Before I go, a bit surprised by this. So I suppose it was a dramatic picture. They had to choose something for a cover. They couldn't obviously go for a cover with Elizabeth Taylor on some of the covers. So I guess they went for something like that. But there's just a few pictures in here. I thought, you know what, that would have made a much more dramatic picture for the cover. But still, the early ones, the early issues of this thing are basic stories. But Death Be My Destiny, you can see it's starting to change a bit. There's a bit of story where obviously there's a bit of theatrical there. You've got the usual challenge between... And you've got this, obviously, love interest, who turns out to be a bit of a, no, as they always do in these stories. But it's just, I think the artwork is beautifully restored, just really cleaned up, just in a nice way, but not done on the usual glossy paper you get Marvel done. This is lovely matte, just looks like an extra quality, as if you would get it off the newsstand, but just got cleaned up a bit, not too bad. You know, you can see lovely lovely white there instead of probably what it would be now if you saw the comics. You can see the artwork. Quite often you look at it and go, oh, that looks like XYZ, the artist. But you can see the subtle changes depending on the inker or depending on the artist. Junior Miss, I love they included some of these covers, these adverts, 52 full pages. That's one thing that's slightly noticeable because it does say 52 pages, but I think some of the ads have gone. Now, I can't compare, I don't know, but I think ads must have gone other than this sort of thing. These lovely ones here, Junior Miss, which would have like stories and things as well. But they had these, included these as well, which I just think is just great. They're fascinating, the little read of the time, no escape. And then you got onto the next one. Now, I don't know if these are film stars or if they're models or whatever. I guess they were at the time. And you got Blind Date. You can see it's changing now. This is issue, issue 2 there, Blind Date. And the stories do start to change. Slowly, you've got the standard sort of romance ones where it all sort of, I choose love, etc., etc. The wonderful things on skis. Just great. But you got this, a lovely period story, which I think's, none of the stories in here are masterpieces. I would have to say that you're not going to, if you're coming to this thinking it's going to be EC Comics, everything is going to be amazing. No. But it's got a weird mix of different stories, and it gets more so in the subsequent ones. Now, it didn't go to the point of having like Dracula or anything turning up, but there's some really quite decent sort of romance was my mistake. And you can see again, I think this is where there it is, there's the picture there. I love a He-Man. Great stuff. I mean, that's just great. He's obviously here. You've got the He-Man character there. Get off, etc., etc. But, they're fun stories. There are some fun stories. We're not always resolved in the way that you think they might be resolved. They go off and realise that love is maybe later. They were mistaken about something. They've made a mistake. Not always. Of course, sometimes you got here designing female, the story of a woman without a heart, manipulating there. I love that classic scene there. Men to me, the mere puppets, slaves, stepping stones to wealth and position. Great stuff. But again, good stories. But of course, I expect there's a realisation, look at that scene there. That's similar. But once in love, and let's go a bit further on. But the stories are changing. Strictly Small Time. And she's obviously there, starts out, and then she changes. But Girl Comics, you can see now, the covers slightly different. Suddenly, they become more like the ones, the EC ones, the crime stories. These ones, conflict, the death plunge. And you can see it change. Mystery, adventure, suspense. And I'm just going to bring this in, because I've got one here, and that's the previous one. And this is actually slightly smaller. This one, The Shiver As You Read, one great title. But you've got the men's adventures in here. It's very similar in many ways. Roof of the World. The story's obviously slightly different. I mean, they're not going to be... But you've got here men's adventures. This is obviously basically the same thing. And he does mention maybe Girl Confessions. That's another magazine that apparently was also... There was loads of them. But this one, you can see real adventures of real girls, man who followed. And then they start obviously having some shootouts here. And you've got here Death Plunge. So you can see the stories change, and the artwork again is some really good artists here. Russ Heath, brilliant one, and many, many others. A real long list of some greats all the way through. It's Conflict, and Bernie Krigstein as well, which is just great. Of course, did lots of work for Atlas as well, so it's not just Atlas, EC, of course. So you've got Turning Point there. Murderer's Daughter. Apparently also mentions, which I love, I was a murderer's daughter, and apparently the reprints, the Canadian one, they actually removed that. So I was daughter, which is a bit of an odd title. They could have changed it a bit, couldn't they? The Killer's Daughter. Maybe they could. I don't know. Whatever. But you can see you've got some stories. They called me a spy, so you've got a spy story as well, which I think is great. Sort of atomic secrets and stuff. It's just the Silver Shield. Great little use of there, the silver. Now the artwork. Various Wings of Death. So you've got here maybe stories that like they did in the Charlton comics, where you would have all sort of stories based around airline hostesses or whatever, or flight stewardesses, etc. Or anyone obviously working in different industries. Real experience of real girls. Downfall. You've got one of boxing one where obviously you can see there's obviously someone's doing there, and again Hour of Shadows. And there's a few little bit of horror ones. Blackout. Real Girls Adventure again. I don't know where they got the stories, the real Girls' Adventures. Maybe they did, but they're the winner, etc., etc. There's also boxing one there. And again, more shooting, more guns there. You can see Deadly Double Cross. Again, written and drawn especially for Girl Comics. I love those bits, especially for it. Well, that's really good. Well, it wasn't done especially for it then. But Breaking Point. So you got Breaking Point. And the covers, you got some really quite interesting Unwanted. I mean, this, this does change it from a romance story. It does mention romance in here. But you've got here the Till Death Do Us Part. You can see Breaking Point, Unwanted. They clearly obviously decided that at this point that and this one's a good one. I mean, this follows, I've seen this story done Till Death Do Us Part, where you've got a character, obviously, they go on a train, or it's a bus, or it's a coach, or whatever. I've seen, they have done similar stories where something obviously you got there, and everyone goes white. Big clue that obviously, hey, what? She shouldn't be on it. She's not. She didn't go. It's like people eating the food, certain food, isn't it? It's famous film. I hate Janet Briggs. I don't know what that one was, but they're just great stories. Girls comics, real experience of real girls. And again, you've got this great cover here. Al Hartley, this one, brilliant artist. I love Al Hartley's work. And you've got the Dark Hallway, like the American flag there, etc. And the artwork's a bit odd, extended. Again, that's that. Probably Bernie Krigstein, that one. Actually, I will go and look. I'm not looking, you can see, this is the great thing about here at the front. Let's just have a look. So here, this one is apparently Bernie Krigstein. I thought so. Just looked like, I don't know why. So you've got that sort of style of his artwork that I'm the worst person to work out who the artists are. So I would never admit to saying, oh, yes, I know it's that, X, Y, Z. You got these, of course, the good old stories. Actually, saying that, I haven't really noticed those. I assume they've all included those. They generally always do. Aftermath. And on to, finally, the end of the book. And you've got the usual creators of this, which I think is another great touch of these books. I really genuinely love that they include this with, obviously, the various dates, etc. Sometimes they don't know, of course. I mean, some of these people have only recently died as well, 2011. I mean, this is Gene Colan. But, I mean, there's many artists, obviously, some of these artists were like from 1915, 1914. So I guess probably, even assuming they lived to about 80 or 90, the likelihood is that they are dead now. But it's just great because it also includes about the artwork, the stories that they did. I mean, some of these people I've never, ever heard of before, which is just brilliant. I think it's just great. The only thing is, I would love to see pictures, but I guess if they haven't got pictures, what can you do? I guess you could have pictures if you've got pictures of some of these people, but that's a minor thing. I think it's just lovely to include this sort of thing like you get in Alter Ego magazine. Alter Ego probably has featured many of these various creators, and I think it's just great. Mike Esposito, I can never say his name right, so my apologies for that. But it's brilliant. I mean, this book was a book I never thought I'd genuinely enjoy. And I actually was reading through this last night, and I loved quite a lot of stories. Not all. I'd have to say that there are some stories that are just average sort of stories where XYZ meets XYZ and all resolved at the end. But sometimes they're not. And sometimes there was a mix of, like, say, historical as well as one set in a sort of bullring and things. Stories that are not your usual ones you expect from, like, a girl comics, as it says here. And I loved it. And as mentioned, this book is probably, and I'm just going to bring this one in, and this is the previous one list. I think that's the previous one, wasn't it? Shiver as you read. You can see, look at the size of that. It is actually slightly more expensive. It's $49, I think it was $49.99, something like that. Yes, $49.99. I'm so glad they seem to be coming more readily available in the UK, which is a good thing. You can get online, look on eBay, etc. Because before, right at the start, when they came out, it was a bit tricky getting them. So it's really great that we can actually get these ones from Fantagraphics. These ones, I just think, look at that. It's just, that is a real thick, hefty tome. And look at the quality cover. I mean, it just looks good. It just looks good. It just, everything about it is smacks of quality, which is something. However, going on about comics and various things. Let's just stretch across there, and you can see here, there's a Miss America. Of course, Miss America does get mentioned. Now, I'm not expecting them to do Miss America. It would be very hard to do Miss America because they were very big. And quite a lot of them were quite often filled with lots of stuff that really is not going to be of much interest to comic fans, I guess. Maybe not. But I think just great little adverts as well. And you've got here needle nifties. And you've got sometimes in these things again, I would love to see Betty Blair. So you've got here, obviously, Betty Blair. I love that. That's a useful. Let's look at that. That's great, isn't it? Betty Blair. Just brilliant. It must have taken a few seconds to quickly do that, but how effective. But this one, I think these are great. Lucia and the Corporal. Obviously, probably this was around about wartime. So I guess that was good. Don't know what exactly it was. They had the weirdest of systems of dating them. So you've got Van Johnson. That's a name, obviously, of cinema. Van Johnson appeared in lots and lots of films. You've got Danny there. That's one there. And I think this one is probably, I guess, a Patsy Walker one. Patsy Walker star. Patsy Walker stars in Sister Sue, apparently. Oh, no, that's all the films that apparently she was appearing in. So you've also got music. You've got various fashions. You've got The Big Top. And Eve Was Warned. And Van Johnson, obviously, some letters. And you've got some sort of... Now, there was a lovely Christmas one, which I regret getting rid of. I suspect on it, you can see obviously a tear there, nothing. But this one isn't obviously an Atlas one, but it could be as equally an Atlas one as any of the others because there was thousands of these things. The market was full of millions of these, literally every combination of comic. But you had some really, I think, great artists. You can see the artwork there. And sometimes they often are, again, people who went on to be very big names. Now, I can't say because I'm not very good when it comes to identifying the artists of these, but I guess some people might look at it and go, that's XYZ. That's what GCD is there for. Super useful to the new girl in town. You got there all various adverts as well, which I think are the reason why the page number count, some of the issues, is probably missing because they obviously excluded some of the adverts. And again, here's another Miss America one, and this one is, again, slightly chopped, been eaten at some point by something, an insect. You can see slightly bad condition there. Probably wouldn't become a near mint anytime soon. But you can see the things was April 1946, Volume 3, Number 6. So just a weird numbering convention. And you've got all the various things. Again, you've got some lovely adverts and things. And very tell that to your diary. Nobody sing, or everybody sing, I should say. And I don't know who that is. Could be anyone. Oh, and again, Patsy Walker, I assume. It looks like Patsy Walker. Let's just turn. You can see another Patsy Walker. Hopefully, maybe in the Atlas Fantagraphics series, Patsy Walker. If Marvel never brings it out, why not bring out a wonderful Atlas library of that? Perhaps they can't, but it would be lovely. Obviously, Millie would come to mind. Cindy Smith or Nessie Nellie the... Oh, wasn't Nessie the... I can't remember all the names. There was so many. Tessie the Typist, that's how it comes up to mind. There was loads of them. They always have, of course, the alliteration there, but they had to do that, I think, in most cases. Not all. But you can see you got some occasional stories in these, but sometimes these were just quite a lot of various things like that. But this, I think, is absolutely great. Not going to be for everyone. This one is definitely not going to be a book that... But I think that if you're collecting the series, I would say perhaps check into it, look into it, because I think this one is definitely one, if you might think, oh, no, I'm not really into that sort of stuff. I prefer the horror. Of course, that is going to be what you like. But I think this book is still part of the collection of what they produced. It was exactly the same if they bring out a funny duck ones. I think there was a funny duck. Was it Daffy Duck? Dilly Duck? They brought out millions and millions and millions of comics. Atlas was just relentless in bringing out different titles. And I think that this book and this series has been brilliant. I love, like I say, the introductions. The stories are absolutely great as well. Glad they've done all the various ads as well, some of them anyway. And obviously you've got the stories there. What an absolutely brilliant book. For me, I love it. Are you going to get this book? Have you got this book? Have you ordered it? please let me know in the comments below. Of course, we've got one coming out fairly soon, I think, the Snafu one, and there's probably some other ones coming out. Of course, I think, is there a Bill Everett one? I think. I don't know what the other ones, I haven't seen any real listings for them recently, but hopefully there will be many more. And there's so many different series that I think they could bring out. Things like funny animal ones would be great. I love those stories. They are genuinely great, silly, but great. Obviously, they could bring out the teen one, let's say the Cindy Smith, those sort of ones. That also occupation ones. There's whole loads of different ones they could bring out. Well, this one, absolutely great, brilliant. Number 7, Girl Comics. Bye.